Hello. So today I am going to be doing my journal on breathing, chapter 4 in the Body Fullness book, along with the class 10 asynchronous class. And yeah, one thing I really appreciated within the book was, there's so many different breathing practices and really like contemplating on how like some of these breath practices can kind of like upregulate your system. Some practices can down regulate your system and like really there's breathing practices for so many different things and really honing in more to okay, like what breath practices are really going to serve me in an everyday way that's like bringing more health and vitality into my breathing and through interocepting um how I naturally breathe without the intention of breathing a certain way. I find that my breath is like pretty shallow and it's very much in my chest. And this is something that I've known for a really long time, many years ago, like over 5, 6, 7 years ago or something like that. Um, I was in the military and physical therapy and seeing someone for my scoliosis. And one thing that was like really pointed out was where my breathing was so in my chest and where I wasn't breathing from my belly. And we would just like practice breathing from like my from the belly, and this is something that like every so often I will practice and there's not really a consistency with it. Um, so like still I notice where I'm just like very naturally breathing in my chest and that it's much shallower. And I feel like this, when I feel that due to naturally breathing in my chest, I'm really actually restricting, um, filling my lungs to its capacity. And when like starting my breath lower, there's more space for my breath to really fill up. And another thing that I realized is with my exhale, it's like my inhales are naturally a little longer than the exhale. And when I play with that and I exhale, my like bring intention to the exhale and exhaling more, naturally the inhale is more full and like more of my lungs and my capacity um, is filled just through focusing on lengthening the exhale. And so I think that, yeah, like a practice such as lengthening the exhale could be really beneficial for me and like where I'm finding um my breath patterns of having more like shallow chest breathing, and also with like a slight imbalance between the inhale and the exhale. And also I feel like bringing intention to starting to breathe from my pelvic floor and like beginning the filling of the air from the pelvic floor that kind of acts as this bowl of holding for all of the systems and structure within my torso and up to my lungs and my mouth that um, are so involved in this very natural process of breathing. Um, yeah. I also feel, yeah, like one desire that I has kind of presented itself through reading this chapter and taking this asynchronous class is um, one, having like a tool belt, really like coming to understand deeper, really these different breath practices and how they, like what they serve with. Like um, for instance, what's it called? uh, like Breath of Fire. I can't think of the yoga name of it right now, but that one can really give me a lot of energy, and which I think is great. I feel like it also makes me feel like more clean. Like sometimes when my body feels like it needs to be like cleared energetically, I really like using the breath of fire to feel that purification and that cleansing, and also the energizing that it gives. And but also I realized like, oh, that wouldn't necessarily be the right breath practice if I was trying to regulate myself, if I was feeling a little dysregulated and wanted to resource a breath practice to ground deeper into my body. So I questioned like, okay, and like what, so like a practice like that can really serve like in of like breath of fire, for instance, can really serve with like morning practice of building energy before school, kind of giving myself this natural dose of energy for the day, as well as like I really like starting my day with like cleaning my energy centers. And but then something like um um potentially there's this practice I learned at an ashram and in Virginia called Yogaville, and it's called Pratipakshavavana, and basically it's Nadi Shodhana breathing, but also it incorporates the mind in a way where you're also basically you like take like 1 to 3 things that you're wanting to like release out of your life or like that aren't serving you, and then you like write or like name 1 to 3 things that you're calling in that you want to like replace what you're releasing with, and then like on the exhales, you're in your mind you're like saying this word like anger, and then like gratitude, you know, and I've was pretty consistent with this practice for a while, and I really like it has really beautiful, it has like shown beautiful benefits in my life. And I feel like that this type of practice is a lot more regulating than something like breath of fire, where how I would do this practice is I would one box breathe, so that like not only is there like this balance happening between the left and the right nostril, but then also the length of the exhale, the hold and the inhale, and then switching and like trying to box breathe and like basically create that like balance within how I'm breathing. And then also using something called Ujjayi breathing, which is honestly, I wouldn't really know how to fully like describe it and like the benefits of it. It's just something that I was taught and like picked up on that I find really helps me breathe longer. So if I'm trying to lengthen my breath, Ujjayi really helps. It almost like is like constricting the throat where it's only allowing like a smaller amount to come in and out. So it like lengthens the um the shrinking and expanding of the cavity of air basically in the body. And I feel like that is really like, when I think about like when I'm stressed out, or even when like interocepting and like feeling more into like anger and these like anger and stress, basically my breath gets even more shallow and it becomes like more quick. And so I think something like Ujjayi breathing could really help like lengthen that breath and like so yeah, so basically, just to kind of like sum up all of this kind of like contemplation and like, I feel like to, yeah, I feel like it's great to have a tool belt of breath practices for different things, and one that I'm um like feeling a desire to develop more of is like more of the down regulating practices, especially like being in school yeah, I think it's just nice to kind of have a resource to release some stress when things are feeling a little heavy. And yeah, and I just see how some of those practices could help with that. Um, yeah, and another thing that I found really interesting in chapter 4 was um I'll just like read this sentence here. Did you know that when 10 of us are in a room, chances are that one of us is breathing in a molecule of air that Einstein had in his lungs at some point in his life? Like, this is something I like have like never thought about in my life of like basically the recycling of air through our bodies and how that continues to recycle throughout the world, the atmosphere, and um yeah, I feel like this is something well, it's interesting to like take this concept and then also like weave in this concept of like spirit and inspiration, and like the breath of God, and with this like recycling, this reality of recycling air that is shows that we're really like sharing air in quite an intimate way. Um, and like with the breath of God and the inspiration and kind of seeing that unity, the interconnectedness. Um, yeah, I don't know. I it seems it's like one thing to note it, like yeah, like the breath of God, inspiration, like breath recycling and like interconnectedness, like these terms. But I also feel like there is this deeper essence that is like dancing within or like being created within the dance of these two concepts that is a bit more uh like non-conceptual. And so I guess like that's why I'm like this is interesting. I'm like there is kind of like a challenge to like create a concept or like put like the mind to it, because like part of that inspiration, that breath of God, that it's a very and this like interconnectedness, it really like goes beyond the mind and concept into this like other dimension that I feel is more of like a knowing than an understanding. And but I appreciate this chapter and being able to take these two concepts and like have them dance together in a way, or like contemplate them in a way where they're dancing that then like reveals this pearl, or like shows that there's like this hidden pearl within the concept of the dance. And I really appreciate that as a like kind of like heady intellectual person. um, yeah, and with that, I feel pretty complete with my journal.